Alright, welcome back to another video, guys, and this one we will be doing a more advanced melee combat system than I've previously shown. So this is what it's looking like here. And basically this is going to be touching off after our last video of the top-down shooter. It's going to be using the same systems, it's the same project file anyways, but in a melee way. And as you can see, there's a lot more elements to this. I did pre-record the entire making of this, but it honestly took me over an hour to do, so I'm gonna go ahead and do it again for you guys. This is the end result of that hour-long recording, but we're gonna do it again. We're gonna kind of just break it down and go through the scene I created, and we're not gonna make it completely from scratch like I did there, but we will go through everything that I've made, and you guys can pause it where you need it, copy it after that, stuff like that. So just so I don't have to take an hour to go through everything again. Alright, so there's honestly not too much. It's just it took me so long because I just kind of got the idea in my head to do it, and I rushed it, so I didn't really practice it and record it. I'm sure if I did it now it would be faster, maybe 30 minutes, but I don't really want to do that again. So this is what we got here. So first of all, if you watched the last video, the top-down shooter, we had our character, we had a rifle, we had a shooting mechanic, and we had rifle animations. So we're going to delete that gun, delete the animations, and we're going to start from scratch almost. So our player has traits. I've created a new system. So instead of the typical tutorial trait class that I've always used in most of my videos, we created one and I called it human. So I'll show you guys that real fast. I created a human class. I gave it 3 attributes: my health, my armor, my stamina. All of them have the max version of themselves: max stamina, health, and armor. All of the values set to 100. All of them applied to the human class. Alright, hopefully you guys should know that, considering I am a game creator 2 tutorial guy who uses stats in every single video, so you should know how to use stats if you're watching me. Last video had a couple instantiates, or however you say that. So we're going to keep the blood, we're going to keep the impact. I did dumb down the blood a little bit. The start size to 0.1 to 0.3 looks a lot better. Alright, and the animations, I turned the rifle locomotion from the last video into a sword locomotion, so idle sword, walking sword animations, and running sword animations. Alright, so that's pretty much all I did behind the scenes wise, everything that's different. Now we go into the scene, and I will give you a quick rundown of what I've changed. So I still have my hand equipped to my right hand. It's just not a rifle anymore. I created a cube called a sword. I made another cube for the hilt. That's obviously optional. And then I created 2 collisions. So, real fast, this is what we're going to need for this project under our tags. So project settings, we need an enemy target tag, an enemy attack tag, player attack tag, player skill, enemy skill, player impact, and enemy impact. That's what we need for this tutorial video. So you go ahead and add those tags in. If you don't know how I got that, you can just do it right here real fast. So yeah, so our sword collision is going to be, so covering our sword's blade is a box collider. So I'm not gonna just show you guys what I've added. This is the tutorial, so pay attention. We're gonna start off with our player sword. So player sword has a sword collision called player attack. This attack will be for our basic attacks. There's going to be a trigger. So our box collider is a trigger. And the trigger is on enable. Set active self to false after 2 seconds. Another trigger, on trigger enter tag. Enemy impact. Set active self to false. Okay, that is our sword. Let me open that for you guys to get a quick rundown. That's the size of my collider. That only really matters if your sword is the same size as mine. So, yeah, that's my sword. It's got 2 collisions. Both should be turned off by default. And you can go ahead and copy and paste that to your enemy, but I'll go through the enemy as well. Alright, what else do I got here? So my combat is the same as the other video. All it is a local list variable component. So you can type that in, type in local list. Once you have that, you just simply add a game object to that list. You're going to create a trigger on update, collect markers within 8 units of the player, drag and drop the combat back into itself on the local list. You're going to sort the local list and drag the combat player back into that. So simply just type in, so on a trigger, the instruction, you would go to variable and sort list by distance. Everything is set to what it needs to be. You just simply drop the object back on itself here. And then you're going to change your rotation to look at target on the local list, the same one we're on. And that is it for that. Trigger disable, wait 0.1 seconds, set active self to true. That is our combat. And then right hand, I think I showed you, yes, set parent to self to right hand. This right hand holds our sword. Inputs, that's nothing, that's always been there. So our canvas, I've created a canvas on the player here. Alright, I've rotated it 90 degrees on the x-axis, positioned it just under -1, set the scale 2 to 2. Alright, so this is what the panel would look like, or sorry, the canvas, that's how big it is, that square here. And you also want to change the canvas to world space, event camera, main camera. So that's our canvas, and then the same size as mine, obviously, if you're doing it like this. If you're not doing it like that and you plan on doing it like my enemy over here, if you want his canvas like his, then you can just wait a minute and do it like that. So for now, this is my canvas. Made a panel the same size as the canvas with a trigger on update, rotate self, Euler angles 90 degrees on the X under the world space. That's only if you're doing it like mine. Otherwise, you'll do it differently for the other one, and we will get into that. I've set my armor bar, so I've got it in a circle image here, and well, the original armor bar is a black with a 100 black opacity, so that's what that looks like. There's nothing special to it, it just simply holds our armor bar. So this is an image, the same image with a solid blue color for armor, that is set under image filled, radial 360. That is my armor. Make sure your armor bar, depending on how you do it, has the attribute UI towards your armor attribute, with the image fill being the bar that is the child to it. I copy and pasted that 3 times, switched the attribute over to health, and for stamina, shrunk them down a little bit so it's got a nice clean look. I mean, I'm still not really a fan of how this looks right now because it looks weird with 3, but that is that. I'm sure most of us know how to do that by now anyways. So that's my canvas. Really the only important thing is the way it rotates towards the camera, but depending on how you want your UI, whether it's like this or like the other one, just stay tuned. Last but not least, for my player, we have our damage scripts. So I've created the first one called armor damage. I've created a box collider here around my character, so whatever enemy attack collider enters this collider will subtract my armor. So first trigger being on attribute change player on change armor. We will run conditions. Alright, so just run conditions right after that. These conditions being, if armor equals 0, we will set active our health damage to true and armor damage to false. So my health damage is right here. underneath armor damage turned off by default. It's literally a copy and paste of my armor damage. The next trigger being on trigger enter tag enemy attack. I'm going to instantiate an impact on my character. So I don't want it to be blood because he's not bleeding yet. There's still armor. So I made it like a little like a dust impact or whatever you have it. Location on self. We are going to subtract the player's armor by 10. Alright, and then that's it for that trigger. Next trigger, on trigger enter tag enemy skill. The exact same thing, just it takes a little more armor off. That's all it does. So make sure that the tags are different for the attack and the skill. The skill's obviously going to do more. Okay, and then the box collider that contains, you know, all the triggers. You need that collider, set it as a trigger, scale it up to a size you think you see fit. And then also tag armor damage under player impact tag. Health damage, same thing, player impact. Trigger on attribute change, health. Run conditions, conditions being if player health equals 0, you will set active your death to true. So another one called death, set that to true. On trigger enter tag enemy attack, subtract health by 10. This time you're going to instantiate your blood splat if you're using that. Enemy skill, same thing, just a little more health damage. And of course your box collider that is set to trigger. Alright. So when your health equals 0, you enable death. On death enable, you're going to ragdoll your character. And you obviously haven't seen the combat AI yet, but you're going to disable your AI's combat basically. You're going to destroy your player's combat. And then you're also going to set active your player's damage scripts to false. So everything containing all this, that's going to be set to false. And your combat player, that's set to false too, because it might screw with the ragdoll if you're constantly trying to look towards a target. Who knows? But do it to be safe. That will make more sense when I go through the enemy AI's stuff, you know, like setting off their combat. So that's it for player pretty much. I know you can't do all of that right off the bat without looking at my enemy AI, but if you do that exactly, it should work out perfectly. So let's go ahead and get into the enemy AI. So I created an empty first of all, and I called it enemy start, because this is where I want my enemy to start, and I want them to chase you, and when they stop chasing you, they're going to run back to enemy start. So go ahead and create an empty called enemy start. Create your character within that as a child. So this is my enemy character. This character holds all the same traits as my player. I've set the speed to 2.5. My player speed is 3. Both rotations are 3000 on both of them. But the enemy mass is just a little bigger because when they kill me and I ragdoll, they're not going to continue to walk through me, whereas I'm going to continue to walk through them most likely, so you want that mass turned up. And then traits, yeah. Next we have target. So this is the only marker in the game. You only want markers on your enemies in order for our player combat to work. Let's see how we collect all markers within 8 units. So this is the markers we are talking about. You're going to create an empty, create a marker, and I don't really need enemy target or the box collider on this one, but we're going to do it anyways to be safe. That was mainly for the shooting ones, but either way, we're going to tag it as enemy target, and we're going to create a box collider that I scaled really small down, turned it into a trigger, but it's 0.2 by 0.2 by 0.2. That's not really relevant, but I would do it anyways to be safe. Our enemy also has a hand equip object on them with a trigger setting itself to the enemy's right hand. Okay. And in that hand, they have a sword as well. I made it red just cause whatever. Got the hilt. And then it's got the same two collisions that cover the blade, but this time it's going to be tagged as enemy attack instead of player attack, and enemy skill instead of player skill. Both collisions set after 2 seconds will disable themselves, and both of them will set active false on a player impact as well, because you don't want to get chopped up twice in one hit, so you want to set that collision to false when it hits you. So these are the exact same, literally just different tags and names. And that's under the sword. Enemy canvas, so if you're trying to do a canvas like this for your enemy or your player even, what you're going to do, you're going to create a canvas, make it a world space, set it to main camera. You're going to scale it down to about width by 1, height by half of that almost, and position it a little above your character. Now the important part would be the panel. So the panel, you're going to have that trigger on update, rotate self, set it towards the camera, main camera, in a world space of 0. That should constantly have it rotating towards the camera and not with the character. And you're going to create your bars, so your armor bar is going to be a black with an opacity so it doesn't cover much of the screen. And you're going to add the attribute UI to your enemy character. If you're doing armor, then this will be your armor. If you're not doing armor and just doing health, then that's going to be your health. And the bar within that object is going to be the fill. Just make sure you turn it on to fill. Horizontal. You know, copy and paste, do it for their health as well. Attribute health for enemy, bar, fill down here. And that is basically it for enemy canvas. I have that turned off by default because when you enter the enemy's combat zone, it will turn on the canvas for you. And that is next anyways. So enemy combat. You're going to create an empty with a sphere collider of about, I don't know, I would say anywhere from 5 to 10 is probably good, depending on what you're trying to make yourself. And then it's going to have 2 objects within it as children: combat chase, combat attack. So as you enter the combat zone, you will set active the chase to true, set active your canvas to true, and that's on a trigger enter tag of the player. Make sure your player has the player tag. So you're going to add on trigger enter tag player, set both of those to true. On trigger exit tag, you're going to set both of those to false. But you're also going to move your enemy character back to the enemy start, the very top of the hierarchy for the enemy. So when my enemy moves away, my enemy start stays here, so he's going to move right back to where he was. And yeah, so that's it for the combat, you know, enabling the combat, I guess. Both under those are tags for players. Combat chase, when that is enabled here, you will simply on enable. So I'm going to turn that on for you. So on enable, you're going to move the enemy towards the player. You're not going to wait to arrive, and your stop distance is going to be about 0.5. You're going to add a sphere collider of about 1.5, and then you're going to add a trigger. On trigger enter tag player, you're going to stop your movement, and you're going to set active your combat attack. On trigger exit tag, you're going to stop your attack and move the enemy back towards the player. Don't wait to arrive. Stop distance 0.5. The exact same up here. Alright, so now you have that set. Now your combat attack. It's going to get a little more tricky. but that's because I wanted to give the enemies skill attacks. So, on enable, let me turn that off. So on combat attack enable, what we are going to do, we are going to, I'll just show you here. We're going to go to your stats, change attribute. We're going to go to your enemy and their stamina. So I have it set from a random range of 0 to 100. So you're going to set, instead of decimal, you're going to go to random range 0 to 100. Okay, you're going to wait half a second. You're going to run conditions and then restart instructions. Those conditions, you're going to add conditions if enemy stamina equals less or equal, that's important, less or equal to 75. So they have a 75% chance of doing a basic attack. You're going to set active your enemy's basic sword collision to true, which has 2 seconds to turn itself off, or hit our player and turn itself off. So you have a 75% chance to play your basic attack. So your basic attack, yeah, turn on the collision, and then the gesture, whatever gesture you're going to use for your basic attack, just make sure you set it to your enemy character. Use the root motion if you don't want them to walk or glide at the same time. If you want them to walk, turn that off. Turn off wait to complete, and you might want to add some kind of avatar mask for that to make it look good. For now though, for me, I'm not doing that. I'm using a root motion, and then I'm going to wait half a second before it's done running the conditions. The branch to that, so the other half, the 25% chance of using a skill, I'm going to put an enemy stamina if the value is less or equal to 100. So that will go from anywhere from 75 to 100. It will initiate and set active my skill collision. And remember, so my player's damage scripts, attack and skill, there's a significant difference in damage. Enemy skill for skill collision, enemy attack for attack collision. So I have a 25% chance to set active my skill collision to true and play a gesture that looks a little more badass, looks more like a skill. Root motion is on, wait to complete is on, wait half a second, and that should repeat. Alright, and leaving our chase sphere, which is about 1.5, the attacks will turn off. He'll chase you again until you're back in that sphere, and then he'll restart all this over again. And each time has a different chance to do the next move. AI damage scripts, armor damage, it's all the exact same as the player, we just simply converted it to enemy. So instead of player, it is enemy character. Armor, and then when armor hits 0, you will set active the health damage to true and the armor damage to false, and change the tags from enemy attack to player attack, from player armor to enemy armor, so on, so forth. Make sure the box collider's in there or it will not work. Make sure it's set to a trigger. Make sure the tag is set to an enemy impact this time so our player's collision turns off after we swing. Same thing with health damage, enemy impact, switch it over to health, run the condition. If the health is 0, turn on death. If not, player attack, subtract by whatever, basic attack, instantiate blood, player skill, do a little more damage, player blood again, and box collider trigger to true. And this is what that looks like there. And then as we die, or as they die, they turn on to death. That death is going to turn off the combat AI of the enemy, so no more attacking. It is going to turn off the canvas, so no more seeing the health because they're dead. We're going to turn off the damage scripts too, because the health damage would be turned on, and if you keep attacking them with the attribute change on, they're going to keep ragdolling. So you're going to take damage scripts off. You're going to start the ragdoll on the enemy now. You're going to destroy the enemy's target, so you stop rotating towards it. Instantiate blood. Wait 0.1 second. Set active player combat to false. And the reason why we do that is so it can reload and set itself to pivot, and you know, it's just a clean way of getting out of combat smoothly. And we set it to false because it has a trigger on disable. Wait 0.1 seconds, set active self to true again. Alright, after 4 seconds, we are going to destroy the entirety of the enemy. So not just the enemy, but the enemy start as well. So destroy the enemy start, the object containing all the information. I've created a spawner as well, so I've put my main enemy out in the corner so I don't kill it, because if I kill it, it will not spawn enemies anymore at the spawner. So for my spawner, I just used something, I made a cube, and then I changed the material to something more see-through, and then I turned the collider off, or took it off. But this is basically an enemy spawn here. I'm just seeing if there's anything a little better looking. We'll do that. And basically, the enemy spawn, all it's going to do, we're going to wait random 1 10 seconds. So instead of decimal, we went to random and then random range. 1 to 10 seconds, we will instantiate the enemy start, the object containing the enemy's information. Make sure that location is on self, not the player. We're going to wait 10 to 30 seconds, restart the instruction, so then we have an enemy that's constantly being spawned that we can test our combat on. And that is pretty much it. It's really just these 3 things, but not even really this one either. This is so basic. It's basically just the stuff within our player. Oh, the canvas. So the enemy will attack, but what I have on just the player alone, the player will not attack. I set my attack, so you can do yours through inputs, but I did mine through canvas because I'm a mobile designer. So that's what it looked like there. So basically I made a canvas, I made a panel. So my canvas is set to scale with screen size, 1920, 1080. My panel I've set to stretch, and that panel will cover the entirety of the canvas. So as you can see here, the 4 points are in the corner. And then you can skip that, go straight to combat area. So what I did here, you anchor this to bottom right. This is what my combat area looks like, but I've turned that invisible, anchored to bottom right, and I have 3 buttons. Button attack, which is an image of a blue circle with the button inside of that. My button, game creator button, obviously. You would go to game creator, UI, button, pro. My button, this is my basic attack. This costs no stamina, nothing. So all this button would do, set the sword collision to true, the player sword collision, not the skill. So sword collision to true. It has 2 seconds before it turns off. I'm going to play a gesture on the player, whatever basic attack gesture you want. Root motion, wait to complete, wait half a second before you can use it again. Simple. Button skill is going to be a little different. So the button itself, you're going to run conditions right off the start of the button press. You're going to add the conditions under the button, and this is going to be your stamina. So if, so stat, attribute, so player, stamina, if it equals greater or equal to 15, then you would subtract player, stamina, subtract 15. And then set active your skill collision to true. And again, 2 seconds before it turns off. Your gesture, whatever you think looks like a skill attack, put that in here. Root motion, wait to complete. Wait 1 second for that to stop, because you don't want to be able to spam your skill. And that's it for the skill attack. And then I have an evade button as well. So this button is going to do the same thing. You're going to run conditions on condition if player stamina equals over 15, greater or equal to 15, then you will subtract it by 15. You're going to add a dash. So dash player. And I like moving direction, because if you're moving backwards, you can dodge backwards. Unfortunately for me, I only have one dodge animation in all my imports of this project. So I have it set so I have a roll set for all 4 of them, whether I'm going left, right, backwards, forwards. It's going to be the same forward roll, so it looks kind of dumb going side to side and backwards, but I changed the velocity to 10. I think that's default. Wait to finish, and then wait a second. And that's the combat. So again, I'm going to go through this one more time here. So as you can see, so the yellow is my stamina. This takes nothing. I gotta wait a second before I can do it again. This takes a little bit of stamina. Gotta wait a little longer before I can do it again. And then this also takes stamina. This one you can spam a little more. You can see our player damage works. It starts off with armor damage, works our way down to health damage, and eventually to the death script. And that is pretty much that. I think I covered everything. If not, I'm going to quickly open everything and just skim through it. So if you guys think you missed something, feel free to look at my screen. I'm going to click on everything here except those. So let's just open that as well. And we will open that. Okay, so for player, simply just traits and player options. Dash. None of these are really important here, but traits, canvas, world, camera, panel, update rotation. This is for the floor panel, or floor canvas, not the enemies. Rotate self, Euler 90, armor bar, armor attribute, armor bar, bar, filled, radial for my circles, copy and paste for all of these, hand equip, parent of self to right hand, sword, collision, player attack, this stuff, same thing, player skill, combat player, collect markers, sort markers, rotate towards markers, disable, reactivate after a millisecond, damage scripts, armor damage, attribute, armor, run conditions, armor 0, set health true, armor false, trigger from enemy attack and enemy skill, box collider. Same thing with health, box collider, skill, attack. Instead of setting armor to true, you set death to true. Death. Ragdoll player, AI combat false, destroy player combat, set active your damage scripts to false. So right here, damage scripts. Pretty much everything's a copy and paste onto the enemy. It's just the only difference is between the two of you is the enemy has the combat built right into the AI, whereas ours is on the canvas. So enemy, death, all that. Health damage, same shit. Just switching tags and characters. Same with armor. combat. Big sphere, 6 radius for me. Player entered tags, player exit tags, combat chasing, chase, combat. Canvas, world space camera, panel, rotate towards main camera, and your health bars, etc., etc. Easy stuff. Player target, and the enemy starting point. Made the speed a little slower than mine. Enemy spawner simply just instantiates enemies. My canvas. My 3 buttons, button attack. There's nothing to it, just a picture. The button itself, 3 things: collision, gesture, wait. Button skill, again, just the button that's important. Conditions: if stamina is over 15, subtract 15, set active the skill. Collision, play the gesture, and wait. Button evade: if stamina is over 15, subtract 15, dash the player towards an area with a certain animation, and wait. And that is it. That still took quite a while to explain, but it's better than an hour since the last one I recorded, so hope you guys enjoyed. That is, more advanced AI, I guess, compared to any previous things I've showcased. So let's go ahead and try this one more time to show off. Here's our enemy. He don't like us. We're gonna fight him. So that's the instantiate, not blood, because there's armor, so it's kind of like a dust and spark. Now we get to blood now that he's got no armor. And dead. Nice little ragdoll to go with him. And yeah. Here's my ugly dodge. And yeah, that is it. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'm hoping it was easier to follow that as opposed to me figuring it out in real time with you guys and not being able to edit stuff properly and taking out all the garbage content. Hopefully by me already making it and explaining it to you makes it easier to follow, or maybe I rushed through it. I have no idea. So let me know what you guys think. If maybe this is the better way to do things, or if the old way, figuring it out with you guys, is better. I'm not sure. I don't know until you guys tell me, so I'm going to go ahead and try that with this video. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and peace. Good luck.